What I'm saying is that what we're missing is the numinosum, or the mystery. How this mushroom that I'm talking about, the Stropharia cubensis mushroom, how it symbolically hooks up with the later chemic dynamic is this mushroom symbolically it gives us Haru and Het Haru. At low doses, the psilocybin cubensis mushrooms gives visual acuity. In other words, at small doses, it makes you see better. That means that you can view reality, our regular everyday reality, better, more clearly. And at a hunting and gathering stage, you can see the plant more clearly, or you can see the animal more clearly. It sharpens the edges. It gives you visual acuity. And we hook that dynamic up with Haru. Haru is what? The falcon. The falcon does what? He flies high and he sees with piercing sight. That's the whole thing of the eye of Haru, being able to see. Even when the Greeks took Ansar and made Osiris out of the name, Osiris means many eyed, being able to see everything. In other words, the God sees everything. So the psilocybin cubensis mushroom delivers visual acuity, which helps you in a hunting and gathering state to be able to see better, which means you have an adaptive advantage over those who do not. Because many different humanoid types, proto-human, Lucy, or Deknesh, the Australopithecus people, the Neanderthal people, were all contemporaneous with Africans. They may not have been contemporaneous with white people. We were walking around with Neanderthals. We were walking around with the little people like Lucy and things like that. But we're different than those people. We're different than the Twa, but the proto-humans who were also contemporaneous with the Twa, the Abattoir and Twa people, the small people. So the thing is this, what I'm going to show in the handout that I gave you, we're going to get into that in about 10 minutes. But what I'm trying to say is that, see, there's no spiritual togetherness or understanding without the neurochemicals that are found endogenously in the body. Melanin, serotonin, norepinephrine, epinephrine, and all the other chemicals that the pineal gland produces. But the pineal gland starts to calcify at age of 12. And you stop producing the spirit molecule. The spirit molecule is DMT, which is what my talk is supposed to be about today. DMT, dimethyltryptamine. DMT is an analog created out of the melanin. Melanin just in itself is the basis, the biopolymer. It's the base. It's what you use to make the other things out of. And those things take you to those states, the near-death state. Really vivid, lucid dreams. The times when people are under great stress, DMT is flooded into the system, and that's how you get that near-death experience. That's how you get that dream that is so real, it's more real than the real. Because melanin has been polymerized into pinealine. Pinealine is a beta-carboline. It's close affinity to harmine. And I know I'm saying some words you may not get with, but you can get with them later. And that's polymerized into DMT. Serotonin is a tryptamine. DMT is the tryptamine. And what happens is DMT and serotonin work in the same receptor sites. So that when if you take, there's a technology that's going around. It's a very ancient technology. It's called darkroom technology. It is one way to decalcify the pineal gland. And they're going on trips. They have white folks going on trips to Thailand and other places where they've created dark rooms. They used to do it in the Great Pyramids. They used to do it in caves. They used to do it under the earth, where you would go and for 14 days you would be put in total darkness without a pinprick of light. Because if you have a pinprick of light, then that drops down the melatonin production. So what you do is you go into darkness for 14 days. After 3 to 4 days, you start creating pinealine. After about 7 days, you start creating DMT. You, in the darkness, after about 10 days, you start seeing in ultraviolet and infrared range. If you are a blind person and you go into total darkness for 14 days, you'll start seeing people in the infrared and in the ultraviolet range. You'll see the person's heat signature. You'll see the ultraviolet signal of their DNA pushing out. You'll be able to see their aura because the DMT is now activating inside of your brain. The melanin is the base polymer. It's what you have, it's what everything has to have. But melanin is not it. It is taking the melanin and turning it into DMT. And I know that when we're dealing with melanin, the spiritual molecule and things like that, if you're not talking about it converting into DMT, and there's several different types of DMT. There's 5-MOE-NN-DMT. There's 4-NN dimethyltryptamine. There's a plethora of different types of DMT. And the psilocybin mushroom, the Strovia convensis mushroom, is a tryptamine and it is a DMT. So what you have is an exogenous or outside of the body compound that can be ingested in the body to augment the DMT that is in your brain. In South America, they have what's called ayahuasca. Ayahuasqueros are the shaman who make the ayahuasca brew. The ayahuasca brew is you're taking a short-acting tryptamine, a DMT, and a beta-carboline, and you boil them together, and you create this brew that you ingest. See, if you take the DMT and eat it, just eating it, the monoamine oxidase, the enzyme in your stomach will destroy it, oxidize it, turn it into endoacetic acid, and you'll pee it out. But what happens is this beta-carboline has an MOA inhibitor in it. It inhibits the MOA in your stomach from destroying the DMT, so the DMT then crosses into the bloodstream and crosses the blood-brain barrier and opens up those centers that we've been trying to work with and deal with as far as opening up the spirit, being able to directly access the mystery. Because I talked about the first level of ingestion of the mushroom, the DMT, that it gives visual acuity. At higher doses, it gives a greater interest in erotic activity. In other words, it creates erection, sexual dynamics come into play. So it is also, again, giving adaptive advantage because you have more what anthropologists call successful copulations. In other words, you think more about sex. You have more sex. So that gives adaptive advantage to a very small hunting-gathering population over those who are not taking that compound that it gives adaptive advantage.
So it's an aphrodisiac?
No, well, it's aphrodisiac at medium doses.
Okay.
But the thing that I'm talking about that differentiates this mushroom from all other compounds, because this compound is unique in nature. It's unique in nature. There's nothing else found. It's an exact brain chemical that can be taken and eaten that will cross the blood-brain barrier and give what happens at the third and highest level of this compound. And that is what's called the monosum, the mystery. It gives a knowing of that there is something else. And that is what's wrong with us as a people. We no longer have our compounds that show us that there is something more. That is what's wrong with the young boys. Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, people think that those are Greek stories. Those are not Greek stories. Those are African stories passed on and told to Homer. If we look at the Odyssey, which is behind the Iliad, and if you just go see the picture Troy and take all the people that's white and make them black and look at the picture and you'll see the first part of it. The second part of it is called the Odyssey. The Odyssey is where Odysseus, the one who made the Trojan horse, knocked over the statue of Poseidon, made Poseidon mad. Poseidon said, you'll never get home, you'll wander. And he wandered all over, and you know, if you see the movie or if you read the book, he went into the Cyclops, he went into the witch Circe, the black woman. He runs into the black woman, the goddess Calypso, whom Jacques Cousteau named his boat after Calypso, and things like this. But the thing is that it's not really Odysseus that we look at, but his son Telemachus. Telemachus grows up without his father. His mother is besieged by suitors that she doesn't want. They just come to Odysseus' house because Odysseus is not there, and they want Odysseus his wife. And Telemachus, the young boy, is growing up in this dynamic. He's longing for his father. It's the same story. It's the same story that we're going through. The young boys are longing for their father. The mothers are besieged by suitors that they don't want. He has to defend his mother, but he's not strong enough. So these stories that we look at are delivering an understanding through books, through movies, of our plight and condition. We run out of time real quick. I'm going to, if you pull up your first page of your sheet here. I didn't get everybody. I didn't spend the money to get everybody a color copy, but you can see the vivid. You can see the vividness of the colors. And I want you to understand the colors are symbolically saying some things. And I'm going to show you some things in these pictures that nobody else probably has ever showed you. I'm pretty sure 99% have never shown you inside of these pictures. Because the thing is with these pictures, the thing is with the Manu Neter, or the Manu Neter, the hieroglyphs that we read. Those hieroglyphs are only read on a mundane level. And I know of no person that has not ingested the power plants that can read the Manu Neter. The Manu Neter was created to be read under the influence of the Stropharia cubensis mushroom, or the brew that is created from the blue lotus plant, which is beta-carbolene, is the harmine, and acacia cooked into a brew. Acacia was such a sacred plant that they had a priest of the acacia tree. And you cannot read the Manu Neter or the hieroglyph unless you have ingested these plants, because this system was created to be looked at under psychedelic compounds. It is not to be read. It is a DVD. You ingest the compounds. You sit in silent darkness. And the glyphs that are on the wall come off of the wall and tell that story. Also, under the influence of the black lotus and the acacia, you can read and see how they're to be read on another level, which is through the wall. In other words, if there are glyphs on this wall and glyphs on the other wall, sometimes they're to be read, the glyph on this wall, then the glyph on the other side. The glyph on this wall, then the glyph on the other side. The glyph on this wall, and the glyph on the other side. But you have to be able to see through the wall and transpose the glyphs into three-dimensional space on this side of the wall and see it in your mind. This is only done through the power plants. This is what the initiations of the young boys were about at a certain time. Then every 3 years, in some places every 7 years, you take different plants. And those plants, see, we have to drop the ego and understand that the only way to be able to get out of the mess that we're in and realize our understanding of spirituality is to become a companion with a mushroom that likes growing on cow shit. The mushroom is presented in the pictures all the time because it's the secret. It's not a secret of Kemet. It is the secret of Kemet. It is imparted into every religious structure that is and has been going for the last 10,000 years. But the thing about it is, when priestcraft came into it, we had already lost the sun clearly, or you can see the animal more clearly. It sharpens the edges. It gives you visual acuity. If we hook that dynamic up with Haru, Haru is what? The falcon. The falcon does what? He flies high and he sees with piercing sight. That's the whole thing of the eye of Haru, being able to see. Even when the Greeks took Ansar and made Osiris out of the name, Osiris means many eyed, being able to see everything. In other words, that God sees everything. So the psilocybin cubensis mushroom delivers visual acuity, which helps you in a chemic dynamic, is that this mushroom symbolically it gives us Haru and Het Haru. At low doses, the psilocybin cubensis mushrooms gives visual acuity. In other words, at small doses, it makes you see better. That means that you can view reality, our regular everyday reality, better, more clearly. And at a hunting and gathering stage, you can see the plant more. What I'm saying is that what we're missing is the numinosum, or the mystery. How this mushroom that I'm talking about, the Stropharia cubensis mushroom, how it symbolically hooks up with the